Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles, where real-life tales of infidelity are unraveled, secrets exposed, and lives forever changed. Join us as we navigate the complex world of relationships, offering support, understanding, and a place for those who have faced the pain of betrayal. Subscribe to Heartbreak Chronicles now, because every story deserves to be told, and every heartbreak deserves to be heard. Story 1. Wife spilled her secrets to her Reddit lesbian lover. My wife spilled her deepest secrets to her Reddit lesbian lover, and I know everything now. Before marriage, my wife told me that she's sexually attracted to women. She'd been watching lesbian porn since high school, but she said she was far more attracted to men, especially emotionally. She said she could never be in a relationship with a woman. With my permission, 2 years ago she occasionally sexted with a lesbian on Reddit. I really didn't care. Our marriage was decent, and I thought the idea was kind of hot. That stopped when she deleted her Reddit account. But I noticed she got a new account because I saw the app on her phone a few days ago. She was on the app a lot, like for hours at a time over the past few days. She closed her phone quickly when I entered the room. I crossed the ethical lines because I know her phone password. When she was asleep, I opened up Reddit. It was the same girl. They were sexting, exchanging nudes, etc. Although I didn't like the secretiveness, this was not the end of the world for me. But I read on. They developed such a strong friendship. But my wife told this lesbian girl that she could never date a girl. That's good for me, right? My wife insisted that she's only sexually attracted to women, but unequivocally not emotionally. Good, right? These two women kept exchanging secrets to one another. My wife said that she occasionally spoke to the man she lost her virginity to in college. A year into marriage, she met up with him. But she was so nervous she just sat in the car. She said she could never forgive herself if she actually slept with him while married. She said this man has offered to fly her to his home, but that she could never accept. She even said that she sent him the occasional nude. The last time she chatted with him was 3 months ago. She says she hates herself for this, will be taking it to the grave, and that her husband could never know. She says that nobody knows except her secret Reddit lesbian lover. She also told her secret Reddit lesbian lover that she has an extreme crush on one of my close friends. That she would 100% fuck him if she wasn't married. We've been out drinking together, and it all makes sense. On multiple occasions when she was drunk and I insisted we go home, she has only ever had a massive fight with me about it when this guy was there. What the hell should I do? How do I confront her? I was an asshole looking at her phone, but now it can't be taken back. We don't have any kids and I absolutely love her. She had a tough upbringing with family deaths, etc. And so I understand that she's often an emotionally confused mess. Should I talk to anybody about this? I mean other than a counselor or lawyer. I don't want to unnecessarily slander her name around town. I want to be married to her. But this is a lot. We've been fighting more and more over the past few years, and this probably explains a lot. Story 2. Found out wife cheated on me when she was visiting her hometown. TLDR, this week I found out that my wife cheated on me when she went back to her hometown to visit her family and friends. We've been together for 9 years, married 5 years. We had some tension during that time which made me realize she has a lot of issues about my behavior, which I feel like was an incentive for her to be with another man. Over the past year and a half we've both been in COVID lockdown. She lost her job and was at home while I continued to work from home. When vaccinations were open to the public, she went back to her hometown to get vaccinated, so she could start to socialize after not being able to see her family for so long. I stayed back because of some immigration issues since I couldn't cross the border with her. May 28th. Everything was going along okay. We'd use FaceTime multiple times a day to chat. Then one day she says that she needs time alone to think about some stuff, so I say sure, I won't bother you. A few days went by and not a word from her, and as her husband I wanted to make sure she's okay, so I called her and all hell broke loose. She was crying and telling me how frustrated she has been with me for years, all the pent-up issues she's had with me, big and small, during our entire relationship. Some of it was valid, some I didn't feel was totally true, but over the next few days the outcome of it was that I needed to talk to a therapist to handle some issues I have, which I accept. There are things I need to talk to a professional about. We don't have any financial, alcohol, gambling, or addiction issues. Mostly anger management, communication, and certain control issues that I have. It was a little rough that week, but we started talking again. Things were going back to normal. I booked a ticket for her to come back home. Meanwhile, I felt like something was weird about her. She wasn't acting the way I've known her to be. She would always say I love you so much and start crying. First week of June. Meanwhile, she mentions she's having vaginal burning, like a yeast infection with some discharge. She got tested and treated for a yeast infection, and I joked with her to get an STD test too, just in case. She did get an STD test and it was negative, but the vaginal issue wasn't going away. June 23rd. So she comes back home and the following day books an online appointment with a doctor to get tested again, and when she talks to the doctor she goes onto our balcony and closes the door. That was a huge red flag for me because she never, ever goes onto the balcony to talk. She did it a second time to talk to her closest friend, and I thought that's really weird. I knew something was up. Later that night I checked her phone to see if anything odd showed up in her messages or browser history. She deleted her entire browser history while she was in Arizona, another red flag. Then I found a screenshot of text messages she deleted but were still in a deleted folder, and they were between her and another guy at the time she was changing flights in the Atlanta airport. She was upset with him because he didn't come to the dinner they had planned the night before she left for her hometown. I then went and checked her phone records, looking at the times she texted or called his number, and she had been in contact with him 5 days before she and I had our first serious conversation about marriage issues. I confronted her and learned that he was a longtime high school crush, and she saw him in the club one night when she went out with her friends. She kissed him in the club and went home with him that night. She saw him 3 more times after that in a public park, and planned to see him for dinner a final time before she came back to me. He didn't show up the final night, and she realized he used her. She said she felt guilty the day after her first hookup and realized she destroyed our marriage. She continued to see him because she felt like it was over between us, was lonely and needed a male to give her attention and confidence. During that time she was seeing him we were still talking, and often after we would talk she'd call him. There's just a lot of emotions right now for me to deal with. She said she went home with him because she had so many frustrations with me, and when she saw an old friend from her past she fell into temptation. I was even more upset that her closest friends let her go home with another man, and over the entire time she was there they didn't tell her that what she was doing was wrong. 3 of her closest friends knew and none of them told her to stop it. She should have known better. I'm just upset with all of them. I asked her why did you come back to me and not just stay there. She said she really wanted to come back and work on our marriage, that she wants to be with me, and she realized she wouldn't find another man who loves her as much as I do. I genuinely believe her. I feel like the experience she had with this man devastated her. I've been the only man she's ever been with, so I can understand a human desire to experience something else when you have the chance, but at the same time a marriage vow has to mean something. Now I feel betrayed and disgusted, but I don't know if it's worth it to go to counseling to work on this and forgive her, or if what she did is unforgivable and ending our marriage is the right option. It's hard to know what to do because there are so many things society, religion and culture tells us about marriage, but at the same time life is hard, and being an adult is really hard. Is it human to try and forgive what a loved one did, or do we have strict rules we must adhere to no matter how much a person means to us? We don't have any children, which makes divorce a realistic option. At the same time, I've invested 9 years in a relationship with her, and I feel like I can forgive her for making a terrible decision, yet it's hard to come to terms with how shitty she treated me and think that I deserve to keep her in my life. How am I supposed to know that she's being honest when she says she hates herself and wants to be with me? I've reached out to a therapist for myself and our marriage counselor for us. She'll need to book a therapist to deal with her own issues. Story 3. My wife of nearly 3 years has done unthinkable things. 2 weeks out of DDAY, please help me. 30. Unfortunately, I have stumbled upon this forum and am looking for some support, if you'd be so kind. A bit of background. I'm 30 and my wife is 25. We've been married 3 years, and together for nearly 6 total. No children, no real assets whatsoever, more debt than there is cash in our checking. We rent a house, and I'm the primary breadwinner bringing home roughly $4,000 a month, and she nets around 1.5 Kelvin. I work my ass off to provide her with the life she's accustomed to, and now facing the unthinkable. My work family is pretty tight-knit. A coworker of nearly 3 years invited me to join in a recreational soccer league which I've played in for 2 years now. My wife would attend every soccer game of mine, which I thought was a show of support for me, but in the back of my mind, I thought she just went for the alcohol that went hand in hand with it. Most nights I had games, I would take it very lightly on the alcohol, but she as a spectator would get pretty loose during the games and ride home with me. Pretty frequently, after the games, a few of the guys and girls would get together at different places to hang out into the night. A few of the times, we all came back to my place, or we'd go to a bar, pizza joint, etc. Well, a couple of weeks ago, a group of them were going to get together at one of the guys' houses a city away from me. I told them all after the game that I apologized, we wouldn't be going. I had work early the next morning. Well, on the ride home, she texted one of the guys I considered as being a buddy asking him to give her a ride over there. She asked me if it was okay for her to go while I was driving home, and I said no, I have work in the morning, and I want to be with you tonight. She gave me the angry alcoholic silent treatment, and upon arriving home, I pulled in the drive, and a car pulled up in front of the house. It was my buddy. She had made the executive decision to go to this party, and I was pissed. I went to my buddy's car and told him I'm not okay with this, and to leave, but then my wife got out of my car and into his. They drove away. In my rage, I plugged in the dead iPad I had bought for her some years earlier. It was old, but I knew it was connected to her messaging, social media accounts. I saw exactly where she was, and tried staying up until I finally fell asleep that night around 3 a.m., and she still wasn't home. When I woke up the next morning, she was in our bed. I didn't know when she had come home. I got up, got ready for work, and left that morning without waking her, or kissing her goodbye, the first and only time that had ever happened. I wanted her to know I was pissed. Well, before I left for work, I grabbed the iPad and threw it in my briefcase. I got to work that day, and after a meeting and a few phone calls, I pulled out the iPad and saw it light up with a notification from a messaging app, "Buddy is typing." I open the app and see a horrific exchange of messages that are supposed to self-destruct, but this app version must have been outdated, as I was able to witness in real time their conversation, recanting the night before, where Buddy is making references to them making love and other guys that had fun last night. I damn near lost it, but then it got worse. I watch as my wife instructs Buddy to send her a video of him masturbating, which he obliged to do and I unfortunately witnessed. I ran out of my office and into the bathroom and vomited profusely. I was shaking from what I just witnessed, and got permission to leave work for the day. After taking several hours to chill the hell out, I drove home and found her still sleeping on the bed. I put my stuff down and asked her to come downstairs. I sat across from her and asked her to tell me in detail everything that happened last night, which she did, but omitted any sort of sexual situations. Just drinking, playing pool, and talking, that was it. I then asked her when she spoke with Buddy last. She said she had messaged him back and forth a bit that morning, but nothing in particular. Then I dropped the bomb. "Would your story change if you knew I watched the entire conversation you had with him this morning?" She blew up into tears, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "Are you leaving me?" She came clean and told me that she couldn't really remember that clearly, but she had sex with Buddy and another teammate last night, and that's all she could remember. It may have been with more guys, but she couldn't remember. I was disgusted. I asked her if this was the first time, and surprisingly she told me that there had been other times. One time was even in my house while I was sleeping upstairs. That was it. I was so numb to it all. I helped her pack a bag, and she left the house to go stay with family, and she pleaded for me not to tell anyone. I was alone in my horror story, and am now 2 weeks out from DDAY with no idea of what to do. I really hope I don't take the cake for worst DDAY experience, but it's hard to think of anything worse than catching your wife in a gangbang scenario with guys you've welcomed into your lives, and to find out that this has been going on for months with at least one of the guys. Now she wants to blame it all on alcohol and swears she's going to start AA, and wants to now go through couples therapy. She wants us to come out of this together. I think it's a little too late, but I'm a chump and I feel the full range of PISD emotions, including guilt. I don't know why. I have a meeting with an attorney tomorrow. I like to think I'm making the right move no matter how broken she is over being an alcoholic and really wanting to work this out. I can't even talk to her without imagining her being the lunch meat in a douche sandwich. I can't trust her. I'm disgusted by her actions. I deserve a heck of a lot better than that, and I'm not perfect, but why in the hell do I feel so guilty? There's no reconciling this, right? I'm not the bad guy, am I? Any support, words of wisdom are very much appreciated. I feel like an idiot writing this all out and seeing it so clearly, but it's not easy to just stop caring about the person you were completely and fully blindsided by. Please take it easy on me. Update. I truly appreciate all of the advice, concern, and positivity that you all have sent my way. I realize that it's been almost a month since I posted about my experience, and I've had many people reach out to me kindly checking in and wanting to know how I'm doing. Unfortunately, this situation has gone from horrific to unbelievably evil. There isn't a word I can think of that does it justice. I apologize in advance for what I know is going to be a long update post, but it's the only way to get the full picture of how truly destroyed I feel. Days after the initial post, I took your guys' advice and made a few appointments with attorneys, and one with a legal document preparation lady to keep my options open. My wife had no knowledge of those meetings, FYI. We went a few days after the post with no contact directly, but she was adamant that this time she really was going to make an effort to get us in to see a marriage therapist, so we can try to see if there was any way of working through this, but I knew in my heart what my choice would inevitably be. She did succeed in getting us onto a therapist's schedule, but it was going to be about a week and a half until we could get in. During that time I was literally stalking her every move from that damned iPad. I was obsessing over it, watching every message come and go, checking Facebook, Snapchat, everything I possibly could. After a week and a half of scrutinizing every move she made digitally, I really had no further evidence, and I thought perhaps she was showing true remorse. When it finally came time to see the therapist, he sat us down, asked us why we were there, and I told her to tell him the story in her own words. She left out some of the details, but most of it was there, out on the table. The therapist turns his head to me after hearing it all and asks me, "How does that make you feel about your trust in her? How does it make you feel about your marriage?" I just shook my head in disbelief and shock, and instead of answering his question, I replied, "If I don't say it out loud right now, I'm afraid I never will. There's no coming back from this for me. This marriage is over. The vows were broken, my trust is shattered, and I think the only thing left to do is to get a divorce." My gut wrenched, and she completely blew up into hysterical crying. I continued, "I don't know what can be salvaged from this relationship, but the marriage is over. I meant what I said on the altar, and I'm not being true to myself if I don't recognize this as being broken, unfixable." At that point, I felt a slight sense of relief, having stated it out loud, in front of her, and a neutral party, that I was done. The remainder of the therapist appointment was spent on him explaining to her why my feelings and my decision were completely rational given the situation, and calming her down. It actually couldn't have gone better in my opinion. He insisted upon seeing us not as a couple, but separately, to see if he could help us as individuals first, and maybe on the horizon, perhaps years from now, bring us together for discussion of reconciliation. I'll say it right now so you don't have to worry. At this point I don't have even the slightest intention of ever considering reconciliation, but at least in the meantime, the individual therapy might actually do me some good. Now, before I continue, I knew at this point I was about to embark upon a legal journey, which if not amicable, could be disgustingly ugly and financially devastating to me, the breadwinner in a no-fault state. The overarching point of the legal process is that I have to keep things amicable right now. Let's fast forward roughly a week and a half. By now, we've both had at least one individual therapy session each, and her narrative to her entire family is that we're ending the marriage because of the breaking of vows, but we're both trying to heal ourselves right now. She's still staying with family, and I continue my obsession with constantly searching her digital presence for any sign that she was continuing her disgusting habits as many of you had suggested she would. Not saying it's your fault, I would have been searching anyway. It wasn't until one night last week that I realized there was a place I hadn't ever checked: the App Store. I went to the app download history of the iCloud account and saw that almost 2 weeks prior to that evening, she had downloaded a secret texting app onto her phone. My gut wrenched. I realized in one foul swoop that this entire time, she's gone out of her way to hide some sort of messaging from me. Knowing I had her iPad, but I really think to this day that she didn't realize that an app downloaded on one iCloud device can be seen in the history from any iCloud connected device. I needed to know what the communications were within that app. I wasn't even in control of my body thinking back to those moments. I downloaded the app onto her iPad, tried a few of her most common login combos, and Viola. The truth, she not only had been messaging Buddy on this app since after our first therapy appointment together, but they had been continuing to have sex with one another during times in which she knew I'd be out of the area. I puked. I cried. It was 3 in the morning on a weeknight. I went into the restroom and started grabbing all the prescription-strength medications I could find. I went back into my room with an overflowing handful of assorted pills that without a doubt would have been effective in ending my life. I sat on the edge of my bed, sobbing, ready to end it. I picked up my phone and tried to call my mom. No answer. My dad. No answer. My sister. She answered. I told her what I had just discovered, through violent outbursts of tears, and she could tell I was on the verge of losing it. She didn't know I had the pills in my hand, but she did insist on keeping me on the phone, albeit in the middle of the night, until I had calmed down. It took about an hour, but I was finally numb again, and after hanging up the phone, I went back into the bathroom and poured the pills back into one of the bottles, washed my hands, then returned to bed to try to get at least a couple of hours of sleep that never came. As hours passed, I realized that I needed to go to work. I couldn't stand to be in that house or that moment any longer. As I got dressed, I threw the bottle of pills into my briefcase along with the iPad, both of which, upon arrival at my office, I promptly gave to my most trusted coworker and asked him to lock up his desk and not return them to me no matter what, no questions asked. He obliged and gave me an understanding pat on the shoulder as I walked away. So now I've done it. I got what I was asking for, what I had been searching for, undeniable proof that not only is my wife a cheater, but she's also a cold-blooded liar. I struggled for days on end, trying to decide what to do with the information I had discovered. On one hand, I wanted so badly to call her out to every possible family member, friend, or acquaintance and let the whole world know what she truly is, what she had done and was continuing to do, but I couldn't. I already have the process underway for ending the marriage, but there's still a time window where she could choose to get nasty and costly. As days went by and more texts, calls, and attempts to communicate with me went unanswered, she finally went out of her way to stop by and check on me. I lost my shit. During the encounter, I was purposefully very vague and seemingly indifferent to her. I didn't know exactly what to do. It wasn't until she lost her temper and started yelling at me for acting weird that I gave her a chance and asked her point blank, "Have you had any contact with Buddy whatsoever since that night?" Her response, "No, I blocked him on everything." I asked again, "Are you sure about that?" She adamantly proclaimed that she hadn't, and that he was gross and she would never do that to me. She could never do that to me. Then I dropped the bomb. "So what about this app? And what about this video I took on my phone of that app, showing the conversations you two have been having this whole time? The pictures you've sent one another, the plans you've made to sneak around based on my daily schedule?" She collapsed onto the ground, sobbing, crying, begging me. I kept my tone indifferent. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm not going to tell anyone about this, and in exchange, you're not going to fight me at all about anything in the divorce process. I'm going to be fair, even though I shouldn't have to be, but you're going to be served with the divorce papers, and then do nothing with them. Otherwise people will have to know about this situation and why it is that I'm being so unreasonable. Your choice." She left, and 2 days later, she was served. Since that day, I've kept my word and haven't told anyone outside of my immediate family members, but I know for a fact she has visited him every single night since then, at the house where he lives with his mother. Her family thinks she's going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings every single night, but my screenshots of her location during the meetings prove otherwise. I don't know why I keep compiling the evidence, but I do. I struggle right now with the anxiety of waiting for this period of time to pass until her right to fight me in court has passed, all the while knowing her family thinks she's on the right path when that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, she's lying to every single one of them. What hurts me the most right now is the injustice of it all. She gets to be around people and act like everything is on the up and up every day, and run off each night to have sex with him, then sneak home in the middle of the night to keep up appearances. All the while, I go to work each day, head home to an empty, mentally haunting house, and experience how it truly feels to be alone in every sense of the word. I'm past the feelings of ever considering self-harm, but these are dark days nonetheless. I'm taking everything hour by hour, day by day, until the day comes that I have the reassurance of knowing I'll make it out of this hell without my finances being destroyed, and officially able to completely leave her in the dust. What I'll do from there, I truly do not yet know. I'm just trying to survive until that moment comes. Thank you all for reading, and for your concern, advice, wisdom, and the courage you've given me. My one outlet in a time of nothing but feeling completely shut out by the world. I may not know a single thing about you, but I trust you more than I trust my wife without a shadow of a doubt. Thank you. Final update. I've waited until now to chime back in, because at long last, my divorce is official. No more need to hide out after waiting the absurdly long 6 months and 1 day cooling off period to see if my ex-wife lawyered up without me knowing. It's done. I've gone completely no contact, and I feel like I'm finally able to start progressing forward in my life. A lot of folks followed my 2 initial posts right after D-Day, as insane and grotesque as they were, and I should have known that the rest of the cooling off period would be just as crazy, so I thought I'd share an update as to what has transpired since my last post. The last post I shared was 6 weeks after D-Day, and what I didn't say in that post was that I had already filed my papers with the county to start the divorce process. I followed the advice of many of the kind Redditors who suggested that I give her back the iPad and sever any ties to devices, accounts that would allow me to obsess over what, where, who she was doing. I knew enough. I knew what I wanted, out. My approach to the divorce process may have hurt me more emotionally in the long run, but didn't hit my pocketbook with nearly as much long-term impact, and it all seemed to make sense in real time as this transpired at an agonizing snail's pace. After coming to terms that this woman could never be trusted again in my life, I knew that I had to be rid of her. But I wasn't going to pay her month over month for half the length of the marriage to the tune of roughly $2,000 divided by month in spousal support as my state would have had me do, as it's a no-fault divorce state, and I was the breadwinning spouse. No way, no how I'm paying her a cent for what she has done to me. So I got angry, gave it some thought, and devised a plan to get out of this marriage and away from her as quickly and fully as possible. Looking back, I am not proud of the tactics I used to navigate my divorce, but it worked out in the end. But I do feel my integrity, or moral high ground, may have taken a hit. A matter of opinion, I suppose. From my point of view of fault and responsibility, my actions were molehills compared to the mountains of mistrust, hurt, and anguish she caused me. Around the same time as my last post, I already had the divorce papers prepared and submitted to the county, but was awaiting their confirmation. I kept this from my wife, who was still living with her family. I had arranged a few times for us to meet up and talk. I wanted to convince her that somehow, some way, I still wanted to try to find a way to salvage the relationship, but in all of our discussions I made it clear that in my mind, this marriage was over, the vows had been broken, and if we truly wanted to start again we would need to start fresh. We would need to mutually end this marriage, and then begin dating one another again, courting, and finding our way into a new, stronger relationship. In fact, I was going to go out of my way to make it as easy and painless as possible for her, hurry the process along, and keep it out of the public eye to just get through this phase, so we can focus on the next, together. A prime example of this was how I had her served. We had a mutual friend come over to my house and play third wheel in a handoff, signature exchange, and conversation. She signed the papers she needed to, sealed up her documents in the envelope they came in without even scanning through them. I doubt she ever really did dig into the minutiae of those tedious legal forms, because I painted myself a very pretty picture, completely absent of any spousal support beyond splitting what was in our account at the time. This was the single largest issue that I wanted to avoid running into, paying her spousal support. Over the first few months, I tried to write out the need time on my own to think pretty hard to avoid seeing her, but met with her roughly 2 times a month to have dinner or meet up in a public place to make small talk and act like I gave a crap. These meetings were always a public place, so she would never be able to say I tried to do something to her. I kept up appearances. I played her on. I made her feel like I was truly working through my emotions and coming to grips with what happened, and seeking the ability to forgive so we could reconcile, when I had absolutely no intentions of doing so. By keeping her led on, I was able to cleanly remove her from my bank accounts, with her actual assistance in doing so, having her removed from the lease, and even got all of her possessions moved out of our house into a storage unit, because after this was all said and done, I convinced her that we would get a new place together, and having her stuff out of the house would make the house feel a lot less haunting to me as I heal. Lying to her and keeping her in this state of submission and cooperation made all of the difficult separation tasks insanely easy, and she thought she was doing the right thing for us. This strategy got me through about 4 of the 6 months I needed to get through until I reached the light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't until sometime in early month 4 that I received a text message from a family member she was living with, asking if we were still working things out. This family member knew of Buddy and the truth to the story, but to keep up my reconciliation charade, I replied with a yes, why? And I received back a picture of my wife and Buddy having dinner at a restaurant a city away, with a follow-up text saying this is happening right now. Just so happens that this family member was meeting up with coworkers for drinks after work, and spotted them together. This is where I completely messed up by letting my emotions get to me. I texted my wife right then and asked if she could talk on the phone, and she replied back with a lie that she was in an AA meeting, and that she could call me as soon as she was out. That's when I lashed back with I didn't know that they held AA meetings at and that Buddy was now your sponsor that got her attention. She called me immediately and started yelling again, accusing me of stalking her. I replied with some choice words the mods definitely won't allow on this sub, basically telling her off, calling her some names, and acknowledging to her that I have absolutely no interest in speaking with her ever again. Thus, the last 2 months of the divorce resulted in her being in a relationship with Buddy, which was private at first, but eventually became public. I had blocked both of them on all social media, but through various friends of ours, information trickled in, questions arose, and more people started contacting me wanting to know what was going on. Apparently, my wife was getting bolder and posting status updates and pictures of the two together. If someone reached out to me and asked, I would tell them as much as they wanted to know. The friendships and relationships I truly valued and wanted to salvage, I had to get on my side. It didn't take more than telling them the truth to do the trick, but having the support behind me, and to hear people who knew us both acknowledge that what she did to me was horrific. Just to hear that validation felt more important than the material division and the divorce itself in those moments. I finally had people to vent to, and boy did I vent. Almost everyone I spoke with about what happened had communicated with her first in one way or another to find out who is this guy she was posting all these pictures of. A common denominator arose from each of those follow-up calls to me, that she drastically downplayed the events which had occurred. Though to the best of my knowledge she didn't deny that she was the one who cheated, I was more than obliged to fill them in on the details she chose to leave out. Every one of our friends and most of her closest relatives were in shock, and I truly believe they chose to support me, and I found myself asking them not to rock the boat until the divorce was finalized. The more time that went by where they were together, the bolder the pictures became, the more public they went with their relationship, the more my phone rang. It came to the point that I had to ask people to please stop informing me of their developments because it still was causing real emotional pain. Valentine's Day happened to be just a few days before the finalization of the divorce, and along with the day of love came 3 screenshots from 3 different people, all of the same social media post. The 2 pigs embraced, along with a romantic description to go along with the picture about how amazing God is to deliver such a wonderful man into her life, and that she couldn't be happier, and that she hopes he is a man she'll marry someday. Whenever a door shuts, God opens a window. Barf. I did get a kick out of the confused comments from extended family and her far-removed friends asking who that was, even a few of the shocked emoji faces. I would like to say it doesn't bother me, them being together, but it does deep down. I still feel a deep sense of loss, but now, I also feel an absolute feeling of pure disgust and regret at how ridiculous, grotesque, and cold-hearted this woman is, and I feel a sickness within me for feeling like I wasn't able to see this monster right in front of me for so many years. Not to mention what a despicable human being Buddy is. I truly have no respect or energy to comment or worry about him. He's sure to get hit by the karma train sticking around with her, my ex-wife, someone I truly feel like I do not know anymore, and it's making it a bit easier on me moving forward. Alas, the day finally came last week, where the court-appointed date of the dissolution of our marriage arrived. I hadn't been served any papers, and her opportunity had passed to fight me for anything we hadn't listed on the agreements last drafted when we were still going to try again. I was able to keep my entire 401 Kelvin, no spousal support, no additional debt into my name, no lawyers, no court, no having to ever deal with this person ever again. At the end of that day, I blocked her number from my cell phone. The next day, 7 of my closest friends threw me a divorce party which they posted on Snapchat throughout the night. It was truly a celebration worth documenting, and earned every single one of them a complete social media block from my ex-wife, and a few nasty texts to some of them. P.S. There is one final internal struggle I'm having, maybe someone can offer some insight. Back during the D-Day obsession period, when I was scouring her digital footprints, I stumbled upon the fact that she had been sleeping with a man from her hometown while all of this was going on. The thing is, this guy is an old flame of hers, but has a wife and a kid at home, and I truly struggle with whether or not I need to find a way to make sure the wife knows. I feel ashamed I haven't said anything to this point, but the thought of destroying a family and having that on my conscience is something that I have not yet been able to rationalize. Do I find a way to tell her? Do I identify myself? Do I keep this to myself? This situation is a worm in my head that is persistent and literally making me nauseous, anxious, and having nightmares on occasion. Any advice would be appreciated, all things considered. Story 4. Confronted my wife on New Year's morning. She confirmed she was having an affair. I'm devastated. Well, what a wreck I am. I am hoping that I can find a future somewhere here. My wife and I have been married 11.5 years and together 13 plus. We have 2 kids, daughter 9 and son 7. I always felt that our marriage was different from all the ones around us that we saw failing. We are best friends, soulmates, until death do we part. I was wrong. My perception of things was different than hers apparently. I was aware that we had some things missing in our relationship, but I thought the other strengths outweigh the issues. I was wrong. I noticed some funny behavior over the last couple of months, but never put any of it together. I see now that I was in denial of the fact that this person that I trusted more than life itself could or would go outside our marriage. Both of us started getting healthier at the beginning of the year. Weight loss being the key. I have lost 115 pounds, her 60 pounds. It was making our lives better. My attitude and outlook on life was getting more and more positive. Our sex life and intimacy was improving. I, in my mind, had committed to 2018 being the best year of our lives. But the last 10 years seemed to have already taken a toll on my wife, and she started looking outside our marriage. I noticed that she was going out with the girls more often, doing more after-work activities like getting involved in her union. She was buying new clothes. I simply chalked it up to weight loss and feeling better and wanting to go and have more fun, which I always encouraged, as I like to go out with the boys and work out of town occasionally. I never wanted her to feel like she was housebound with no social life. I noticed that her phone stopped showing her location on some of the nights that she was out. Once again, never thought anything of it. In fact, I felt guilty for even thinking that she would be up to something. Finally, she told me last Friday in the afternoon that she was going to a girlfriend's to have some drinks and would probably crash at her house. I told her that it was a great idea, have fun and make sure that she crashed there rather than driving home. That night I checked her phone location and wanted to see which friend she was staying at without bothering her. Well, I noticed her location was off again. My heart sank. I switched from Find My iPhone to Find Friends app. I had never used this app, didn't even think that we were signed up on it. Well, we were, and it put her phone location at a hotel near the airport in our town. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. In the morning, I saw her location go through the drop-off loop at the airport. I still tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, and maybe her plans changed with the girls and they went out for drinks instead of staying in. May one of her girlfriends needed a ride to the airport. Well, when she got home, I asked how her night was. Did they have fun? Did she crash at her friend T's house or K's house? She said they drank and crashed at T's house. I asked if T or K were planning vacation this week. She said no, they were staying home. I wanted to blow my lid there and then. The kids were around, so I decided to keep my mouth shut until that evening, as we had planned on being together that night. Instead, she fell asleep with our son, a regular occurrence. He likes to be cuddled to sleep. It made me mad. I could not get it out of my mind. I started snooping on everything, found a pair of panties that I had never seen in her purse, a bottle of KY in her bathroom bag, and then I grabbed her phone from the nightstand in my son's room while she slept. My soul was crushed. I found texts and Snapchat conversations. She told him she loved him. I found cell phone calls on our bills going back to October 31st. Long 1-3-hour conversations, so many of them. I did not sleep a wink that night. In the morning, I waited until I could get in a part of the house without the kids and asked her who else knew about her new man. She was shocked, but told me only her friend Kay knew. She had kept the secret from other friends and family. She told me that he was a man that she had known through her union committees and that he was married also. She wouldn't tell me his name. I told her I was leaving for the day and was not sure when I would be back. I drove to my office, picked up a bottle of whiskey and proceeded to drink an entire bottle of Jack Daniels while I watched my Buffalo Bills earn their way into the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. What a bittersweet day. I also was able to put enough pieces together from his social media names to figure out who he was and who his wife was, and get his wife's cell phone hash from a website that she was listed on. I immediately texted his wife. She was on vacation with him. My wife dropped him at the airport to meet her at their destination. She also confirmed that they had been unhappy for a while, but their vacation was to be a step in rebuilding their marriage. My wife sent me multiple texts while I was at my office. I turned off my location and blocked her from all social media, and never responded. This prompted her to contact her entire family and tell them what had happened, as she was unsure if I was going to contact them first. I didn't talk to anyone. I was ashamed, embarrassed, emasculated. Why would I tell anyone? I waited until the morning to make contact. I told her I was safe and if she wanted to talk, to get someone to watch the kids and come to my office. She was hesitant, but came. I asked her all the questions we all want to know when this happens. Most importantly, who was she going to leave, me or him? She said that she had cut him off and wanted to make things work with us. I hope that I can believe her. We are trying to be our best selves around the kids, including staying in the same bed. She told me that she needs to work on herself and might not stay in our bed. She has given me access to her phone. She said that there had been one 5-minute phone call with the other man to confirm that they were done and both were going to try and make their own marriages work. This morning, I texted his wife again to see if what my wife was saying was true on their end. I have not received a reply from her. I haven't told my wife I texted her again, not sure if I should, but I want to be 100% transparent and honest. Since then, I have read many posts here and some other blog posts. I was pointed to the 180 which I have read a couple of times now. Man, I have acted the exact opposite of what the 180 tells us to do since D-Day. That's what brings me to this post and the questions that I have. First, I truly want to save our marriage, and she has told me the same. I am simply going on faith right now. She said that today she will find phone #S for counselors, therapists for us, individual and then couples therapy. For those of you that have reconciled, did you implement the 180? Did you do it right away? It seems so hard. The other thing that worries me about the 180 is that she knows me better than I know myself. It seems to me that she will see right through it and still know exactly how I feel. I am bad at lying, especially to her. I also worry that the 180 will push her away. So many emotions. Have others had positive experiences with therapy? I really want to hear from people who have survived this and kept their marriages together and, more importantly, made their marriages better after this betrayal. So heartbroken right now. Thanks in advance.